Hi, welcome to the Ralphthemoviemaker podcast. I'm joined by Cam. What's up?
Hey.
We're here to talk about X-Men. Not the X-Men movies, the Wolverine movies. The three.
Yeah, specifically the three focusing on Wolverine, but played by Hugh Jackman. Yeah.
A lot of X-Men movies to cover. There's like 13 movies, counting Deadpool and Wolverine.
As in, like, excluding the three Wolverine movies and the two
Yeah,
Deadpool
excluding...
ones. So it's X-Men, the first three,
Yeah.
First Class, Days of Future Past, Apocalypse, Dark Phoenix, and the New Mutants. So that's actually, 8. You're right.
Oh, it's 8. Yeah, it's actually 8.
We can mention also that Hugh Jackman will be playing Wolverine again in Deadpool 3.
Yeah, I can't picture anyone else as Wolverine, for sure.
Yeah, he's a very charismatic curmudgeon.
Say whatever you want about the quality of the movies, the actual, like, all three of them. I like Hugh Jackman in them. It's just the movies around them sometimes that, like, kind of fall apart. So yeah, these movies are like, it's crazy the upswing. Like they get better. The Wolverine movies, for sure. They figure it out.
Yeah, but
I think,
it's sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's funny though, like, because I agree, like, they get better. Like, there are like many like ups and downs. Like, sometimes there'll be one that's very good, and then the next one's like lousy.
Well, the X-Men movies are all over, yeah. But as far as just like the Wolverine movies, they get consistently
sorry,
better.
I agree.
Yeah. X-Men's all over, yeah, because like the first two are great, then the third one sucks, and then First Class is great, and then Days of Future Past is great, and Apocalypse is terrible. Yeah, we watched a little bit of Apocalypse too, for like our discussion.
Yeah, I think Jackman. Yeah, I agree that he also that he fits the part very well. It's kind of like Robert Downey Jr. is like Tony Stark, Iron Man. Just like he just fits that part well, and you get very invested in his character. It's definitely like it's a benefit of like the fact that he played the character in so many movies, which isn't always the case for superhero movies. I mean, think about like how many actors have played Batman.
People go see the movie for him. Basically, he's the number one. He's the number one dog of the X-Men, for sure. So they gave him a movie, his own movie, in 2009. It's called Wolverine Origins.
X-Men Origins
Wolverine. Comic book fans hate this movie.
Everybody hates this movie.
Non-comic book fans hate this movie. Yeah, I was going to say non-comic book fans hate this movie as well. So let's just get into the story of Wolverine Origins, which is Wolverine. It's about his backstory. It's about his history. And including how he got his adamantium skeleton, right? And how he became such a curmudgeon, as you said. How he became, like, distrustful and, like, what's the story of this Wolverine? Because when you first see him in X-Men, he's very, like, this guy on the road. He's mysterious. He doesn't remember who he is. And as it turns out, his backstory is like some shitty action movie that went straight to video. This is known as one of the worst comic book movies ever, which is why I suggested we watch it. And yeah, it's bad. It's really bad.
Yeah, it's atrocious.
Yeah, it's almost like the Josh Trank Fantastic Four movies in a different way.
I think that one's probably worse just because it's like so dour, but this is really dumb.
It was incredibly dumb. It was the dumbest movie ever made, basically. It's like a cartoon.
Yeah. But it's kind of pointless as a prequel because he gets amnesia by the end of it anyway. I mean, we can spoil it because, like, who cares? Like, the woman who was, like, supposedly the love of his life, she dies at the end, and then he doesn't even remember who she was. So, like,
what's the fucking point of the movie?
Unless that's, like, the great tragedy. Oh, he doesn't remember the love of his life. It wasn't even really. It's like Total Recall. She's, like a fake wife. She's really a double agent or whatever.
Yeah. So he just wakes up. He's like, oh, who's this lady? And he moves on. It's like, okay, that doesn't quite have an emotional impact, I guess.
I find like in general, like prequels work best if you think like that section of Godfather Part 2 with, De Niro, or like Better Call Saul, like not necessarily like prequels that provide like big twists. It's just more like it makes you like reconsider like the characters, and certain events, like the behaviors, like are like, okay, now I know why this character acts this way, or like, oh, like I'm looking at this from a whole different perspective because I learned this about the character, not like some big revelation. I don't think it doesn't usually work as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's a terrible story. It revolves around Wolverine and also his brother Sabretooth, played by Lee Schreiber.
Yeah.
And this like scientist, a striker, this like warlord, whatever, military guy, who's trying to like take Wolverine and make him into a weapon or whatever. And that's the story. It's like, we're going to take Wolverine, we're going to make him into a super soldier, and then he's going to like get revenge for his woman. That's like the whole plot. That's why it feels like a shitty like straight to DVD action movie. It's like so dated.
It's like Death Wish or something.
Yeah. So the movie, it starts like hundreds of years in the past.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Where yeah, he's like, Father, well, our father has been killed. Well, he stabs the guy who's like attacking his family.
The other guy, but he's like, I'm your father. The guy he attacked. That
wasn't your father. I am.
What?
Or the mom's like, that was your father. And then Wolverine runs away and Sabretooth follows him. And then we see a montage of them fighting in every war since like the Civil War, and they never rise in rank.
They're just soldiers.
They show like some footage of World War II or One.
Well, they recreated for the movie.
Yeah, they recreate it. But you see like a landscape shot. There's a dead body in the foreground, laying on like barbed wire or some shit. And then you see the credit pops up. It says "Will I Am."
It's pretty funny, and it also it freeze frames too. That like it puts emphasis on his name.
Will I Am, just in the middle of this like horrific war scene.
Basically, Wolverine and Sabretooth, they join this, it's like the 8, like a Suicide Squad type, team of superheroes. And I am. He's so bad in this movie. It's just, occasionally, rappers can, get into acting, but he's just not up to snuff. Like he's meant to like deliver these like dramatic lines, and he just sounds like he just walked out of his trailer 15 minutes ago and he's trying to make do.
We hunted our own kind, Logan. There's a special place in hell for the things we did.
Mutants? Why?
Stryker said we'd be making a difference.
The special effects are bad.
Oh my god,
CGI.
It's pretty. Not that I'm an expert on like CGI, but it's like very unconvincing in this movie.
Another thing that made the movie feel like a cartoon. Yeah, the Wolverine's claws, especially in certain scenes, were clearly CG, and it's like, why did they do that? You could just get like a practical
prop.
That would probably look better. Was that so hard? Yeah. It's not like you need like the CGI. He's just like looking at them. He's like in the bathroom.
It's such a pointless scene.
It's like, and then it turns into slapstick with him like he knocks the sink over or something, like scratches the sink.
Yeah, it reminds me. I don't even think this is that great of a movie. It's better than this, but like in the Amazing Spider-Man, I thought they did that scene a little bit better when he was like, I think like wasn't there a part when he was in the bathroom? He was like messing with his web or something. It was kind of like the same kind of scene.
That is technically a better movie.
It is better.
I'll give you that. Yeah. I'll give you that for sure.
And the claws are very strange looking. It reminds me of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, like when like Eddie Valiant, he goes into like Toon Land and he's got like the gun, like the animated gun. Yeah. That's what it looked like. Yeah, just like the quality of the animation.
Again, I liked Hugh Jackman, and I liked Lee Schreiber.
Yeah, I think if it were a better movie, I think they could get a lot of mileage out of their, interactions, because they've both been good and better in other movies. But the script is co-written by David Benioff, who co-created Game of Thrones, which that got started a year or two after this came out.
What about the dialogue?
The dialogue is it's pretty lame. It's just a lot of it's very generic. Like there's no, especially having just rewatched Logan a little while ago. Like that dialogue feels very natural, and this is just like the ultimate action movie. Fucking blah blah. You should have killed me. Da da da. Blah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna,
really cliche.
I think even at one point Sabretooth's look what the cat dragged in. Who the fuck was this? Did they have Chat GPT already fucking writing this shit?
Look what the cat dragged in. Yeah. The action scenes were bad as well. It's an action movie. The action scenes suck. There's no tension the entire movie. The movie lacks any weight. And that's also because, you have these two characters. They can't die. They keep stabbing each other. They don't die. And there's no blood. It's a PG-13 bloodless movie. It really ruins the action in this case. Not every movie needs to be rated R, but this one's their powers are to kill people with their claws. So they should be rated R movies. I mean, they're pretty violent. It's a violent character.
Yeah, not that
and Logan worked great.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Also just on a baseline level, it's literally a character who can stab other characters with his claws. It's not Superman doesn't really need to be rated R. What the fuck is he gonna do? He's not killing anybody, or what? He does in some movies, but you know what I'm saying.
That really takes away from the movie, the lack of blood and the fact that the characters are invincible. It's just it's like in Man of Steel when they're punching each other and there's just no tension because you're all right, they're both invincible, right? The story isn't going anywhere. It's like a big when a immovable object meets a unstoppable force.
Speaking of which, which is a line
really happening.
Yeah, the line in The Dark Knight.
In a good superhero movie.
Yeah, because this came out in 2009, and in 2008, two of the best superhero movies, Iron Man and The Dark Knight, which felt very modern and exciting. And this was like you said, it feels more akin to some those first two Fantastic Four movies or Daredevil. It already felt very dated.
The director of this is the guy who did Ender's Game.
Gavin Hood. Yeah, I've never seen Ender's Game. I read the book.
And he did he did an independent movie or some independent movies that people like. He's not a bad director. It's just the movie didn't turn out great because he was it's just he didn't have control, when you're working in the studio system, an independent artist like that, he has no bargaining power with the studios, so he just gets bullied around by the studios. Basically, he's okay, here's a shitty script, let's just make a movie out of it. I doubt there was much he could do with the material. The script is just junk. You're very limited, and I think it's it's exciting if you think about what Sam Raimi did with the Spider-Man movies. He put a lot of his own flourishes in there, ones that you wouldn't necessarily see in other super movies. Same with Christopher Nolan with the Batman movies. Right. Those directors really put their stamp on it, and here he definitely didn't do that unless it's a bad stamp. But he just he made a really bland movie, and he didn't with a comic book movie, you can do these things that are interesting. Mm-hmm. These routes, like The Dark Knight did, and some of the X-Men movies, the good ones, where you take it in a route that's more dramatic or more interesting. And there was nothing memorable about this movie. There's nothing memorable about the way it was made, the action, the style of it. It was very bland.
It's notable for the fact that this was the first movie where Ryan Reynolds played Deadpool.
Deadpool has the nickname the Merc with the Mouth. Mm-hmm. That's because he talks a lot.
Yeah,
that's
as we know
his nickname
now.
Yeah, it's crazy knowing Deadpool now and seeing this interpretation of him, because at the time we didn't know who the fuck Deadpool was. It was just another character,
right?
In the movie. Mm-hmm. And now looking back on it, it's they clearly didn't understand what that character was. It's hilarious, the complete misinterpretation. and I can see why comic book fans absolutely hate this movie.
Oh yeah, because like
and that interpretation.
Yeah, his character's in this movie, his mouth is literally sewn shut in the third act, and like he becomes like the main foe. Like they fight on top of like a nuclear power plant. It's really like bonkers at that point. They even show the scene of him in this movie in Deadpool 2, like him like shooting the other version of the character.
Yeah, that's really funny. It's funny that like that's how hated this movie is, that you could just openly mock it. That and Green Lantern.
Yeah, another bad Ryan Reynolds superhero. He had a lot of duds before the Deadpool.
Right. It shows you, you try until you succeed.
Yeah,
I'm happy he finally got to make, a good Deadpool movie eventually. Yeah. But they throw a lot of comic book characters into this movie too, like Gambit and the Blob and whatever. And they don't add anything to the film. They're just thrown in there for marketing and to put them in the trailer. But yeah, the movie feels so fragmented because they just keep throwing in characters.
Yeah, the Blob is a really weird character, especially too because he's played by Kevin Durant, who was also on Lost. He actually played like a good, like menacing bad guy in that, but here it's just played for laughs. He's just huge, and they have a boxing match. Like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? It's just filler.
That scene could have been cut out. Yeah, completely. They show Cyclops. You see him in school again. I feel like we've seen the same scene of Cyclops. Like,
yeah, they did it in like Apocalypse too. It's a very that movie's like marginally better, but it's like the same fucking scene.
What he's writing on the board there, like Bart Simpson.
yeah, it's fun.
That's the Simpsons reference for the.
I will not be in another bad X-Men movie.
Yeah, write that over and over until you remember that.
That he's gonna run out on a skateboard.
It's crazy, they had years of comic book history to take from with Wolverine. Like all these great stories that like the newer ones do. Like the Wolverine is based on a comic, and Logan's based on a comic. It's based on Old Man Logan, which is a comic thing. Like this is like they had years of comic book material to like adapt, and they just did nothing with it. They just had like no story. They had no angle on the story, It has like no hook. Like what's the hook? It's about Wolverine. That's the hook. But like his origin story, like as far as like what I said was the story of this movie, it's like a half hour into the movie he gets his adamantium or whatever, and then like the movie's completely fucking aimless for an hour.
Yeah,
it goes nowhere.
It does putters along, and especially too because the following X-Men movie, and the whole franchise was First Class, which is a really fun prequel. It takes advantage of its period setting, and it's fun to see the the new. Like the actors playing the younger versions of the characters, and like if you think like this movie, it's just like a big nothing. It's just a big pile of fluff.
The part with Clark Kent's parents, I want to.
Right, yeah, because at one point, Wolverine he stays with a couple and they take care of it. Then they just like get blown away in the barn. It's done much better in Logan. We'll get into that when we describe Logan.
Yeah, but, half star for me. For X-Men
I think I'll give it a 2 out of 10 because it is terrible. I usually like to reserve the half stars for something that really gets under my skin. Funnily enough, I don't even consider this the worst blockbuster 2009 because it was also the year of Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. I think that one's worse just because it's longer and more annoying. So next we have 2013's The Wolverine, which I had actually never seen before. I watched it with Ralph a couple weeks ago, and I mostly enjoyed it. I thought it was decent. It was directed by James Mangold, who also did the following one, Logan. He had done, he's done other good movies, like Walk the Line and Ford v Ferrari. I've never seen Girl Interrupted. He has a few pretty well-known ones, and the new Indiana Jones, which will be coming out in June, he directed. So pretty good body of work, and there's some cool action set pieces in this one, like when Wolverine's on the bullet train, because it's set in Japan mostly, and it's not perfect, but it's definitely a major step up from the previous movie.
So the story it's adapted from a Wolverine comic from 1982, I believe. And that's known as the greatest Wolverine story.
Oh, really?
It's known as one of the greatest. Yeah, it's known as one of the best Wolverine stories. So it makes sense to adapt that one, right? You actually have material And the story's about like this Japanese man who Wolverine meets in World War II. Wolverine saves his life from like Nagasaki or Hiroshima, one of those. Like,
yeah. It's a fun opening.
Yeah. And years later, modern day, Wolverine's contacted by the guy who's now old, and he wants Wolverine's healing ability, like so he can live and Wolverine can finally die, because Wolverine hates living. He's constant turmoil and torment. So they give him this offer. He declines, and there's also this other plot with like this woman who's next in line or whatever, in like, right, something. It got kind of muddled at that part, but Wolverine has to like protect this woman as well.
The guy's granddaughter, I think.
Yeah, guy's granddaughter, right? And,
she's like a princess
like,
or whatever.
Yeah, so there's like a little love story there. And then there's this other cool girl with a sword going around. And then there's a Russian lady who's dubbed.
Yeah, we think I'm not positive, but it kind of sounded like she was dubbed. Yeah, because like towards the end, like when she was delivering lines, it almost didn't sound like it was coming from the room. I understand that like a lot of movies use ADR, but like in that case, it was pretty noticeable.
Was distracting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's distracting. The character's called the Viper, and they got like this Russian actress to play her. They probably weren't very happy with her performance, so they dubbed over all of her lines. It's very noticeable in the movie. That would be one of my criticisms for it. Like, is that her voice even? Yeah, that was a really weird performance overall. I wasn't a big fan of that. What you said about the action, the action's great. The action's really cool at points. Not all of it, but like the bullet train scene is a lot of fun. That was really cool. I really enjoyed that.
It's much less cartoonish than Origins. I feel like there's still like CGI, but there's also like actual stunts. It feels like, and less more grounded like action set pieces.
Yeah, it's not a bad movie. It's kind of in the middle of Logan and Origins, where it has a more personal stake in the story, which is good, but it's a little too like bland. And the story does get kind of muddled at a certain point where I just wasn't very engaged.
It founders a bit in the third act because it kind of just turned into like a guy in a giant robot suit. And
it becomes more cliche.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Hugh Jackman, he's great in it. He looks ripped.
He's all jacked up.
Yeah. As far as like their attempts to humanize him, not like entirely successful. Like it's a step in the right direction, but I still wasn't entirely there with the character, as opposed to Logan. Logan really gets that emotion out of you.
Yeah, I think one thing that worked well, like he's not like he's not immortal for the whole movie, which I think was like at least like a good idea to like add some stakes. It wasn't something that had been done before.
That was a problem with Origins.
Yeah,
he couldn't die.
And also too, what's funny, you mentioned how he's still, mourning Jean Grey, Famke Johnson, and I noticed like it's a trait in a lot of movies, like maybe it's just me, like a character, like they're remembering their dead wives. It's always like with them in the bedroom, like they're like under the maybe because I'm thinking like the Grey. I think that did something similar.
Yeah,
I feel like ever since like Memento, like they do like that kind of like flashback.
So like the original story was written by Frank Miller,
right,
and Chris Claremont.
Frank Miller, who worked on Sin City.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just like I don't know, it was a fine movie. I don't have much to say about it.
Yeah, it's probably the one, because it's not as bad as Origins and it's not as good as Logan. Yeah, it's kind of just like right in between.
The fight scene on the train was badass. I like that. The movie looked good. I do wish it was rated R. It's still PG-13.
Right,
it's missing
that is noticeable.
For sure. And yeah, it's just like some of the emotional beats of the story didn't work. Yeah, I don't know. It's not a terrible movie, but I wasn't too crazy about it either. I liked the first half. Yeah.
And I was just thinking, like, in terms of, like, this was, like, 2013. It wasn't my favorite superhero movie that year. Like, I probably prefer, like, Iron Man 3, but it wasn't the worst either. It's, like, it's better than, like, Thor 2 or, you know, Man of Steel.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it was something different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not DC or Marvel Studios or whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd probably give that one like a 5 or a 6 out of 10.
I think 6 is fair. Like, it, you know, it has, like, enough, like, positive traits. Mm-hmm. That's probably, high 6.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So there's Logan. Old Man Logan.
Ooh,
this is
the main event.
Yeah, this is when 20th Century Fox was still, you know, Fox, and it's a different time where they would actually make a rated R comic book movie. I don't know if they would do that now.
Well, the next Deadpool is going to be, I think.
Oh, good. Okay. I wasn't too sure about that because they have the kitty movie director guy.
Sean Levy.
Yeah. Who makes kids movies. But yeah, 20th Century Fox, they took a huge risk with this movie, making a rated R film that's a character drama,
right?
And also a superhero movie, and it really paid off because I love this movie.
Yeah, it's an excellent movie.
Everyone loves this.
Like X-Men.
Excellent. Yeah, very very clever. Yeah, Wolverine in this, he's just got more shades of gray to him. He's more interesting. Yeah, they actually made his character great. He can't heal anymore because he's old.
We kind of I think it's getting harder for him.
It's getting harder.
Yeah.
He can't, yeah. And you know, he's up against young men who are like fucking at the top of their game. So they're beating the shit out of him in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, like the movie,
great.
It gets started really quickly. You know, there's this, you know, he's like drunk in the limo and the guys are trying to rob it. He fucks them up, you know.
Yeah.
It sets the tone right away. Like, this is not your grandmother's, you know, X-Men movie.
Right. Everyone's dying. Like, Wolverine is dying. Professor X is dying. He has dementia. He keeps having these episodes where he kills everyone around him because he has like these psychic.
Yeah. It's almost kind of like earthquakes. Like, everybody becomes
he has like a
paralyzed
seizure.
by him. Yeah.
He has like a seizure and he ends up like killing everyone around him or whatever.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's like a thing I like about that. Like, you know, before he gets attacked by the other Wolverine, it's kind of implied that he killed, like, by accident, like inadvertently killed like the other mutants or a lot of the other ones.
He killed a lot of the other mutants by having a seizure.
Yeah, at the school in Westchester.
That's pretty dark to think about when you consider, like, just think of like Xavier in the other movies and like all his interactions with the students or whatever. And that, he just killed all of them by accident. And he has to like live with that. It's like, oh, that's pretty dark.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's very heavy. Yeah, and Patrick Stewart plays him. Yeah, I mean, he's always great. You know, I think he excels in playing this more frail and unhinged version of the character. I think it suits him well. Yeah,
and it's rated R. It's fucking violent.
Yeah, they curse. There's actual blood. And also too, like you mentioned, it feels like there's actual stake, like characters get killed. It's not like X-Men: The Last Stand, where it's just like fucking. It just feels like it's like for shock value almost.
Yeah,
like
they don't just like throw characters in there. Like, I like that there isn't like a huge bad guy in this movie. It's just a military guy with a robot arm.
And the scientist.
It's not about that. Yeah, it's just like scientists chasing him or like government. Yeah, they didn't make it like a big like Origins did, where it was all about like and even like a X-Men Apocalypse or like the bad X-Men movies where they focus on the special effects. It's like, this is all great, but there's no, story here to latch onto. And here you really care about the Wolverine character and this Laura character, the girl. And you just care about their dynamic is great too. Their acting is really good when he's yelling at her in the car there. It's a really convincing scene. Yeah. Like, it's great.
Yeah, it's not like cheesy. Like, he actually, Hugh Jackman plays him great. Yeah, he seems very like exhausted and frustrated. It's not just like, in X-Men Origins when he was yelling. It's because of the script. Like, it was just like very like,
and he's scary.
Yeah.
Wolverine is scary. Like, you should be scared of him. But Laura isn't. That's like funny.
Yeah, Daphne Keane, is that her name?
Yeah, and she's good in it.
Yeah, she's very good.
Yeah,
especially because
movies like
she's like mute she's pretty laconic in the first half, and yeah, she makes a great impression.
There's a good balance of like humor and as well in the movie.
I think it, especially like compared to like something like Batman v Superman, like that one's just like so like dour and like dry. Like this is like intense, but it's not just like joyless. There is some like natural humor to it, and it's able to insert like comic relief when necessary. It doesn't feel like jarring.
Yeah, for sure. It was funny at points, and it was just always interesting. It was well paced. I like the angle where like the other X-Men movies they didn't really happen like that. Like he's reading comic books that are X-Men comic books like in the universe, but like what happened in the universe is like slightly different.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like a meta angle to it.
Yeah. Like the comic book movies you've seen are like a more exaggerated version of what's happened in this universe. Because he's like, yeah, that kind of happened, but not exactly like that. The movie establishes its own tone, and it like makes sense. And yeah, I just thought that was like an interesting little detail. I remembered that.
I remember when it was like the 10th anniversary of The Dark Knight, and there was some article like, "What do you think is the best superhero movie since The Dark Knight?" I said Logan, and then also like Spider-Verse. I think this is my favorites. One thing I like about Logan, like compared to Dark Knight, like something they share in common is not just like like the darker themes or the violence. I like the fact that it's like it feels like its own story. It's not just like beholden to some greater narrative. And I like like a lot of the MCU movies, but sometimes they can feel like hampered by like having to have like certain scenes or like characters inserted. Like this, like it feels like it's pretty like uncompromised vision in that sense.
Yeah, it is very dark. Yeah, the farmhouse scene too. To like compare with Clark Kent's parents and origins.
Yeah.
You actually like the people. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It has an impact. Yeah, it's not just like it's pretty brutal. It's not just like some corny like all of a sudden like the gun down. It's they get like murdered.
They made it work in this one. Whereas in Origins it didn't work. It was
at all.
Yeah, really corny. Yeah, it's just like a great movie. It's really, I like the score. I remember saying I didn't like the score, but I like the score now. I think it's good, especially toward the end.
Yeah, I like the pays homage to a lot of different westerns. Even kind of like the setup for the story is like him having the reluctant hero having to protect the girl. They reference Shane, which I've never seen, but like, you can compare it to like, a lot of like Sergio Leone, like the Dollars trilogy or, like Once Upon a Time in the West. It definitely like has similarities and like, those kind of stories.
Yeah.
Redemption. It's we've always liked Hugh Jackman the role. This was his, best performance in the pot. I thought like at the time he should have been up for best actor, but they tend not to. The Academy doesn't always go for like genre movies.
Yeah, he should have been nominated.
I think so.
Yeah, honestly. He was great in this movie. Mm-hmm. Everyone was great. And Patrick Stewart too was fantastic. Yeah. I think he should have been up for a nomination as well. Yeah, those two performances are great. It's just funny hearing them like curse and all these things.
Yeah,
because you don't really get that in the other movies. Yeah, here they could just say the fuck like as many times as they want. It's funny hearing Professor X say like fuck and all these things.
Yeah, I like the supporting cast too, like Stephen Merchant and Richard E. Grant and
Yeah, the comic book characters they threw in were organic to the story. It wasn't like White Queen or whatever in Origins, where it's just like throwing in like people.
I forgot. I don't even remember which character it was.
Yeah.
White Castle.
Yeah. Harold and Kumar go to White Castle. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else is there to say about it? It's a great movie.
Yeah. I think like even like somebody who's you could show this to someone who's not like a diehard like superhero movie fan, and they'd still probably like it. It's intense and like dark, but I think it's still like very accessible, like and it's a fitting finale in a way. I know we've seen the Professor again and like Doctor Strange too, Hugh Jackman's going to return to the pot. We weren't sure if he ever was going to play the character again, but I guess Deadpool 3 will be set before the events of Logan, so it doesn't feel like it's negating this movie. And it's one of my favorite superhero movies. Yeah, it's terrific.
Yeah, I agree. It's excellent. Yeah, it's just very dramatic and well done. Yeah, it's my favorite James Mangold movie, probably. Mm-hmm. This and 3:10 to Yuma.
I've never seen that.
It's good. Mm-hmm. I would. What would you rate it? If you.
It's hard to say. At least a 9. It's outstanding.
Yeah, I would rate it a 9 as well.
There were 2 good Logan movies that year. That and Logan Lucky, also worth watching. Different kind of movie, but also good.
Yeah, Logan and Logan Lucky. That happens sometimes. Movies come out with same titles or whatever. There's 9 and 9. It came out that year.
Oh, that's funny. That never occurred to me. I didn't realize that. That's funny. We can cover those. That'll be the next.
9 and 9. Yeah.
I've never seen either of them.
Yeah, and then there's 9 Lives.
Yeah, we don't need to do that one. It sounds pretty bad.
I think Up in the Air and Up were the same year.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, there are probably other examples. I'm trying to. I'd have to think of a good.
Up in the Air and Up.
I think there was something like that last year. I'd have to look.
Yeah, probably.
There was I don't know if it's not quite the same, but After Yang and After Sun. They were both A24, the 2 After movies.
So leave your questions on the Ralph the Movie Maker Reddit, Ralph the Movie Maker podcast Reddit. We'll answer them there. Have you seen any Universal classic monster movies? And if so, what do you think of them? That's from Gazoo Skull.
That's a good question. Do you want to start?
I've seen a few. I've seen... I wasn't a huge fan of The Mummy. That was kind of boring. I like Invisible Man. I like Creature of the Black Lagoon. That one was pretty groundbreaking for its underwater scenes, the Creature of the Black Lagoon. Because, they have a guy in a suit, fucking underwater chasing a lady. And there's a camera underwater. In the 50s, that was really impressive. So I'm oh, that's cool. They probably got a tank or something. I'm not quite sure how they did it exactly, but it's really impressive.
Yeah, I've seen a couple. I've never seen The Invisible Man. I've heard that's good. That's directed. Yeah. That's James Whale directed that. Who also did the first 2 Frankensteins, which I have seen. I like those. I definitely prefer Bride of Frankenstein. I think that's a great movie.
Yeah, that one I haven't seen. I want to see that.
Yeah, the original's a classic too. I think it's pretty short. The first one. I think it's just over an hour or maybe 70 minutes. I really like, people may know, I like, James Rolfe has done he covers a lot of horror movies and he's done good videos on the Universal horror movies. I think the stuff without Frankenstein is kind of boring, the side characters, but it is a good movie. The makeup's really cool because I don't think I've never read the Mary Shelley book, but I think a lot of the design of the creature was kind of from scratch and Boris Karloff. They make him look really cool, with the bolts and his skin and then the second one too, because it gets burnt at the end of the first one and he's his flesh is kind of all burnt up and the second one is it's really great movie and I've seen the Wolfman. That's a good movie.
Yeah. So I'd say my favorite's probably Frankenstein.
Yeah, I think you'll like the second one even more. And I have seen Dracula. I like. Dracula's good. I think the first 25 minutes I think is the best part of that movie. Just him and Renfield at the mansion and on the ship. It's actually that movie's really old. I mean, it's almost 100 years old at this point. That stuff is still pretty creepy because there's no. It was, I'm not the first person to point this out, but there was one of the first, it was a pretty early sound film. So a lot of it, there's no score. I mean, the opening titles have, Swan Lake, that music, but most of the time it's very quiet and it kind of adds to the eerie atmosphere. And Bela Lugosi too, his portrayal of the character. Rob Zombie actually like mentioned how like the side characters in that are kind of like more like vaudeville, like that classic like acting. Oh hey, see, but like Bela Lugosi he was just kind of like doing his own thing. Like it wasn't like anything else, like anybody else like on screen.
Yeah. For sure.
I've never seen. You said you weren't crazy about like the Mummy with Boris Karloff. I like the remake with Brendan Fraser. It's actually it's corny but it is a pretty fun movie. Like it's like a blockbuster. Like it's a lot of. I enjoy it, and obviously, Brendan Fraser's made a big comeback, and I was glad because I like that. I was always a big fan of his as a kid, and it's very sad. And he's a good lead in those movies.
Yeah, for sure. I gotta see Dracula for sure. Bride of Frankenstein. Those I definitely need to see. Frankenstein's good, probably for the same reason. Like the atmosphere's cool.
And the Black Cat. That's another famous one I'd like to watch.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, and one quick thing. Like it's funny. Like there was, you reviewed the other remake, the other Mummy remake with Tom Cruise. It was funny. Like that was supposed to like be some like big universe, and then fucking.
Yeah. Russell Crowe was supposed to be like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Oh my God. I think it was Johnny Depp, was it? Because Russell Crowe, he's in the Mummy, isn't he?
No, Russell Crowe. Yeah, he's Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Johnny Depp was the Invisible Man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Angelina Jolie was Bride of Frankenstein. Javier Bardem was Frankenstein.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Because I remember they posted the whatever that was. That was several years ago now. But they posted the picture of all of them, and they only did the one movie.
That's funny. They like all post for that picture, and then they never made the movie.
Yeah, you can't like just like promise shit like that because like Marvel like did it like very very like cautiously, and because otherwise you're just gonna like fall on your face.
Yeah, because like Iron Man was successful, and then they announced all the shit.
Yeah, like when I saw Iron Man, I had no idea it was gonna lead to some like elaborate universe. I mean, I'd seen like Kevin Smith did that based on the comic, like his movies like intertwined, but it hadn't been done too many times before in movies.
Yeah, and like. Yeah, the Hulk, whatever. Like they introduced Iron Man in that in the post credits. Like people had no idea what was happening.
Yeah, I didn't really think much of it at the time. It's
exactly.
just like, oh, okay. It's just like a little cameo. It wasn't even like a post credits scene, right? It was like literally like the end of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's try this one from Jimmy N347. Have you watched anything Twin Peaks, the show, or Fire Walk with Me? What do you think of it? Have you watched any Twin Peaks?
I have. I haven't seen every episode. I also
haven't.
I haven't seen the revival season. I don't the revival. It's not a movie. It's a TV show. I've heard people call it a movie, but it's not.
It's like it's almost like a mini series. If you count it, if you don't count it as like the third season of Twin Peaks, you could count it as like a mini series revival. Yeah, kind of.
Yeah,
it's not a movie. It's not a movie. I agree.
And I've never seen the Fire Walk with Me. Apparently, that's not like. I think it was like critically like reviled at the time, but I think now like the reception to it is a little warmer because apparently I'd like to watch it at some point. But I think you watched it in class, didn't you? Because you had that David Lynch class.
Yeah, I took a class on David Lynch, so we watched all of his movies. I loved all of them except for Dune. Dune was boring. I fell asleep in class. But Fire Walk with Me was good. I enjoyed that one. I've seen some of Twin Peaks, like you. I've seen like some of the first season, and I've seen the revival, like all of it. I love the revival. I think it's really well done. I love the style of it. It's like super abstract. Twin Peaks is fun. At first, I didn't get it. I was like, "Why is the acting bad?"
But it's like it's kind of like
supposed to be.
It stays
like
in that
sitcom.
Minor key, a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's David Lynch. It's
and Mark Frost.
Bizarre.
The two of them created it.
But I mean, it's just like it's a David Lynch style. It's bizarre. You're not supposed to take it at face value. You're supposed to think about it, and like once you get the tone. You love the show. Like people love this show, love it. Like they think it's the greatest show ever made. Once you get the tone, you're like, oh yeah, I get the comedy, I get the characters, like the amount of characters, and the fact that they're all so distinct and interesting. You know that, and the bizarre humor, and the memorable, like the log lady, like little shit like that. You remember.
Yeah, all the funny characters, like the two brothers, like at the mill, like they start like break dancing, all the weird stuff, and Agent Cooper, and like Kyle MacLachlan. And I have I don't know if I have it right in front, but like this great book, TV the Book. It is like the list of the greatest shows. It was ranked up 23, so it was pretty high. It was right below SpongeBob actually. The two authors, they mentioned how, like, the murder of Laura Palmer, like it was kind of like almost like a Trojan horse. Like it was like that wasn't like the big. I mean, it's kind of like the crux of, like, it's what you get you invested in the show. But it was really like at a certain point, like the hook was watching the characters. Like kind of like the writers kind of lost interest in the mystery.
Mm-hmm. It's not that kind of show where it's about like a murder mystery, like who's the killer. That's part of it, but yeah, it's like it's a way to just like explore this town and these characters, and that would turn some people off too. They'd say like, "Why is the show aimless? Like it's not about like Laura." But they're just not. They just don't get the show. They don't get what the show's trying to do.
Yeah, it kind of like it also too, like it aired like 30 years ago on ABC. There was like really nothing to compare it. Like it kind of like led the way for like weirder like shows like The Sopranos and Breaking Bad, like story
Mr.
like,
Robot.
Yeah, kind of zigs when you expect a zag. Because I don't want to spoil too much, but like the first season has like this major event, and then like when the second season premiere like has this like really bizarre sequence that I'm sure like people like when they at the time were probably like, what the fuck is this? But that's probably like what makes it that's what makes it memorable. Like it's not like what you expect.
Season 1 was like a sensation for Twin Peaks. Like everyone loved season 1, and then season 2 didn't really hit so well.
It meanders a bit, like later on.
Yeah. So the second season, it ended with that for a while until the revival. But yeah, that was the last season. That's kind of what turned me off the second season too. Is like knowing that people didn't like it. And I like the movie Fire Walk with Me. I definitely like the movie.
And I know, it's definitely hugely influential. Like like there's that show Riverdale now, and not that like I'm saying it's as good, but like just like that kind of like offbeat like soap opera style. It definitely it was very unconventional.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I guess that's it. Thanks for watching, everybody.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.